Thank you very much. And I am happy to be here today to offer some insights from the work of the task force, which was given the mandate, as you know, by the government in June 2016 to consult and provide independent advice on the design of a new legislative and regulatory framework. Shaped by extensive consultations, the task force report delivered to ministers and made public on December 13, 2016, provided 85 recommendations. The advice contained in our report is the culmination of more than 5 months of work. We traveled across the country and heard from Canadians, including parents, youth, and patients. We spent time with experts and organizations who shared their diverse perspectives. Indigenous experts, leaders, their representative organizations, and elders were invited to participate in a variety of task force engagement activities, including an Indigenous Peoples Roundtable. These opportunities provided the task force with valuable perspectives on the interests and concerns of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We met with officials from provincial, territorial, municipal, and Indigenous governments who emphasized the need for close collaboration amongst all levels of government. We traveled to Colorado and Washington and spoke to officials in the government of Uruguay to learn from their experiences in enacting systems for legal access to cannabis. We also received close to 30,000 responses from experts, organizations, and Canadians who took the time to respond to our online questionnaire, including major Canadian associations such as the CMA, the CNA, the Canadian Pharmacists Association, the Canadian Trucking Association, Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and many others. Through your committee hearings, you have undoubtedly heard a diverse variety of perspectives, just as we did. In developing our recommendations, we sought to strike a balance between implementing appropriate restrictions in order to minimize the harms associated with cannabis use and providing adult access to a regulated supply of cannabis while reducing the scope and scale of the illicit market. Our recommendations are grounded in caution that leads to an approach that is more restrictive at the outset of legalization and subject to adjustment over time if evidence supports it. This balanced approach has guided where we landed on some of the areas that have generated debate. I can speak to 3 of these areas, which I understand have been of particular interest to this committee and other committees studying Bill C-45. My co-chair, Dr. Mark Ware, will speak to other issues. We heard disparate views regarding the minimum age limit for the purchase of cannabis. The task force gave serious consideration to the various recommendations, ranging from 18 to 25 years. We recognized the increased risks associated with the use of cannabis at an early age. Yet, we also recognize these risks also exist for other substances and activities that are legally permitted at the age of 18. In Canadian society, 18 is generally accepted as the age of young adulthood. We believe that with appropriate information, young adults can make informed decisions affecting their lives. Further, the evidence shows that adults from 18 to 24 are the segment of the population most likely to consume cannabis. Setting the age for legal access too high will lead to a range of negative consequences, such as leading young adults to continue to purchase cannabis on the illicit market. That market has no quality control or other assurances. In proposing a federal minimum age of 18 and enabling provinces and territories to set it higher, should they choose, we aim to balance the need to protect minors with the objective of reducing the illicit market. A second issue that garnered significant interest was home cultivation. We heard concerns about the health and safety risks of home cultivation, enforcement challenges, and fears about diversion to the illicit market. However, these concerns generally pertain to larger scale grow operations, particularly in relation to so-called designated growers in the medicinal program. That is why we recommended that the government immediately take up a review of that category. Arguments in favor of allowing home cultivation are premised on the belief that it can be done safely and responsibly with appropriate limits and safeguards. As in other areas, technology is transforming home cultivation. Ultimately, the task force concluded that allowing limited home cultivation, along with a prohibition on dangerous manufacturing processes, reasonable security measures, and oversight by local authorities, appropriately accounted for health and safety concerns, while providing a reasonable framework for enabling small-scale cultivation of cannabis for personal use by law-abiding adults, much like we currently see with home brewing of alcohol. A third issue that we examined closely was whether there should be a limit on the amount of cannabis an individual could have in their possession or on their person at any given time. Many law enforcement officials argued in favor of personal possession limits. Although quantity alone is not indicative of trafficking, it can be an indicator when examined in conjunction with other factors, for example, carrying large amounts of cash, that could help in determining whether to lay trafficking charges. The task force also heard from a number of respondents who argued that there is no possession limit on alcohol and tobacco, and that a personal possession limit would be impractical to enforce. Based on careful consideration of these views and the experiences of other jurisdictions which have legalized, the task force recommended that the amount of non-medical cannabis that individuals can carry on their person in a public place should be limited to 30 grams. It is our view that this is a reasonable precaution that may also provide some clarity to law enforcement efforts. I would add that based on the conversations we had with law enforcement officials, experts, and other stakeholders, the idea of a possession limit for individuals in their homes would be arbitrary, hard to enforce, and, dare I say, paternalistic. To conclude, I would reiterate one of the observations we made in our final report. No matter how long we wait, and how much we prepare, it will not change the fact that the regulation of cannabis is a complex, groundbreaking policy initiative. There is no doubt that we will continue to learn as this initiative unfolds, and that flexibility and an open mind will be required in the months and years following implementation. As we have heard everywhere we went, there will be surprises, regardless of how thoughtful we believe we have been. Our challenge will be to respond with wisdom and with proportionality to those surprises. Thank you.
Thank you.